The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
So basically, what you do is you turn it on whenever you own it at. Okay. But the amount here says the credit comes out. Yeah.
Hi, this is Jeff, the Big Hairy Dog,
So
and this is a webinar on V8 reporting. We have 12 people signed up, 6 people are here. We're probably not going to wait too long. We're going to get rolling on reporting. We don't want to wait too
there
long.
a screen,
What's
a
that?
screen that's like showing anything yet open?
Let's see. I don't know. It's good. I'm guessing there wasn't.
Oh, there we go. We're good.
That's probably better, isn't it?
Yeah, thank you.
No, thank you. I appreciate that. I unmuted everybody, and you guys can mute yourself, or I can mute you if you want. But if you have questions, I much prefer you just ask them. I mean, if you don't understand it, then I'm obviously doing something wrong. So that's the agenda. I guess we have. I guess that could be a little better graphics, but I just snapped it real fast. So I'd have something here, and I guess we should just dive in. People can connect as they become available, right? And hang on a quick second. On a webinar.
okay, so we got this
People just join in and want to take over, don't they? All right, excellent. Okay, so V8 reporting. V8 has a very slick and powerful report engine built into version 8 that's really pretty awesome overall. However, it has a few small limitations. So V8 reporting can be accessed either from the V8 main menu. So if we were to go into V8 reporting, I mean regular Retail Pro, which I am seeming to be lacking a shortcut to on my desktop here, or you can have a direct shortcut like I have right here. So I guess most of you guys have V8 version 8. You already know this, so I'm probably just like spinning your wheels and wasting your time there. But I guess I should be technically correct, right? All right, so version 8, bring that up, boom. And of course at the top we're going to see a button that says analysis, and then on the sidebar it'll say reports. And that's the formal way to get into it. Analysis on the top and reports here on the sidebar. That takes you to the main menu. You could also, like I say, have a shortcut. It's just an executable. So anybody who wants a shortcut, if you go into your RPro folder and you look for reports.exe, you could just pull a shortcut. So anyway, we already have a shortcut. We don't need another one. Let's pop into reporting and take a look at our plan here. So there are 4 types of reports, and these reports are very specific and they have definite function and purpose. So let's take a look at those. So in here we have journals, merchandise, summaries, and lists. And everybody can see my screen well enough, or is that resolution too high? I can pull that down if we need to. So
Looks good.
all right, fair enough then. I will roll with it then. So journals, let's talk about these in order of appearance here. Journals are transaction-based reports. So first and foremost, above everything else, a journal reports on a list of transactions. So if I run a sales journal, for instance, like a sales receipt journal, and I filter it for an item in inventory, it will not tell me the total sales for that item. It will tell me the total sales for all the receipts that had that item on it, if that makes sense. So you never need a journal until you need a journal. And when you need a journal, that's the only thing that'll do the job. If I want to find out who made that sale where they gave 70% off some item, I filter for all transactions that have discounts at 70% or that have that item on it, and I find the receipt, right? Or if I want to find out who screwed up on a given register, I can run a list of all transactions on that register with a sales receipt journal. So we'll do some of that in a minute here. Let's just keep going down the list. So a journal, list of POs, list of receivings, list of sales. Anyway, merchandise report. Merchandise report is a multi-data type report. A journal can report on sales, like transactions, or receiving transactions. It can't look at both. Whereas a merchandise report can look at sales, receiving, on order, on hand, transferred, adjusted, all in one report. But it cannot see any transaction information. I can see what's on order, but I can't see what order it's on. I can see what's sold, but I can't see what receipt it was on, if that makes sense. So a merchandise report is a buyer's report. It's a show me what's on hand and what's on order and what I need to order, right? Basically, it's a polar opposite of the journal. Journals can't report it on item level, and merchandise reports can't report on the transaction level. Summaries, that's like the meat and potatoes of reporting right there. That's what that is. They are like a journal in the sense that they are a one-trick pony. They can only run a one data type at a time. I can run a sales summary, or I can run an on-hand summary, or I could run a receiving summary, whatever. But I can't mix those. But I can summarize anything. If I want to know an answer to something, that's probably the fastest report, both in designing it and getting the answer in running the data, is a summary probably. So we'll design some of those too. List is, it's like a catch-all. That's the stuff that didn't fit in any other category. So I want a list of customers, and that's the most popular list report, by the way, is to filter for some criteria and get a list of those customers that bought that criteria, and then maybe send them an email or something, right? That's kind of what customers lists do. Of course, what I just said is a bad example because they don't. The email address wouldn't be in this report. You'd have to connect it. And there's a couple ways to do that, but let's not talk about that right at the moment. Anyway, you got departments lists, you got employee lists, you got vendor lists, and customers. That's the list. Not terribly exciting, but semi-useful. All right, creating a report. So let's talk about creating a report. Let's talk about something simple. Let's just start with a summary, I guess. So I guess we'll take this in the order of events, common changes. So if I wanted to make a simple change to a report, I've got a lot of junk in here. I apologize for that. I could take a customer summary. I could click edit, and I could change something like the name field here is too big. I'm using customer name 1/2 size. I would prefer to have quarter size. And in fact, I want to go inverted. I want the last name first. So I'm going to put this above the line and put this below the line. Boom, change done. Click save. That's it. So you guys probably already knew that if you've been using V8 for a while. You knew about the whole line thing above and below, and I know it's a little remedial, but I got to go step by step. That's how the thing goes. Okay, layout and sort, and sort specifically. Sort is the big kahuna of designing a report, and we'll play with sort, and we'll make some reports 101 errors with sort here, and we'll screw around with it and see what happens. I have no idea what data is in here, by the way. All right, so first I'm going to ask you this stupid trick question. What is sort? What does sort mean? I mean, does it mean like alphabetizing? I mean, that's what I said when I was asked that question. I said, yeah, it's like alphabetically sorting them, right? I mean, that's not the answer though. That's the secondary function of sort. It's not the primary function of sort. The primary function of sort is to define the level of detail. So the object of the report, essentially. So let's just take an item level report because it's a lot more easier to see. A customer is not so easy. But here in an item level report, let's go look at this here and let's go to sort. what do we got? Okay, we're going to sort first down to the department and group everything by department. Then within the department, we're going to group everything by vendor. And then we're going to group it by style. And then within the style by color. And then within the color by size. Now that's an item at that point, right? We're down to the item level. But when I look at this report, all of men's t-shirts are going to be together by vendor, right? So it is in fact sorting them alphabetically, but it's also more importantly grouping them at the level of detail of the report. So hopefully that makes sense to everybody. Now, mistakes. Let's get off this report. Let's get on a report that we can make a much bigger mistake. So let's go down. No, I don't want to save any changes. Thanks. I'm just going to pick sales vendor summary. Pretty basic report. So let's just run this and let's see what we got here. Minus 600. I don't know. All right, so we got a report, right? And that's what the report should look like. So on the left-hand side, we see we have a number of items that have no vendor, i.e. null value. Then we have this Aurora and Bentex and CC. I have no idea what this is, but you see we have some vendors and some sales, correct? So now let's do some stuff with this, okay? So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take vendor code out and I'm going to put department code in. So now I'm going to point out my mistake before I make it so you guys can see it. I changed the layout to print department code. I did not change the sort. My level of detail is still vendor code. Whatever you put in the sort as far as descriptive components, i.e. vendor code describes the detail, should be in your layout and you should have no other descriptive components. So what happens when I run this now for the same time period? Okay, let's see what we get here. Okay, so let's see if we can zoom in a little more here. Let me make that readable. Okay, you see that the department code GE, whatever that is, appears in the list twice. It's right in the middle and it's at the bottom. Well, that's weird, isn't it? I mean, why would a department code appear twice in the list? Because the data we're looking at is not for the department, is it? It's for the vendor. My sort, my level of detail is vendor code. The data is being grouped at the vendor code level. Now, I ask it to print a department code. Well, what department code does it print? It prints the first department it finds in that data set. Completely random. The luck of the draw. So this report here is lying to you. You're lying to yourself. So let's go loop back around here. Do you want to save this? No, I don't. Let's put vendor code back in here now. And let's run it this way. Now you can see both. You can see the proper sorting. And again, it's printing an arbitrary department code, which is completely arbitrary. I want everybody to understand that if you ask it to print something, it will fill its layout requirement with the first thing it finds. Many people have made mistakes and made bad decisions because of that, not understanding sort and layout. Now, we're going to go the next step. We're going to go ahead and take this. Do you want to save this? No, I don't. Still don't want to save it. We're going to take the sort down to the department code to see what that actually looks like, right? And since we're doing this now, I don't want to run all these together. So I'm going to go into the totals and I'm going to turn on a subtotal, and I'm going to subtotal everything at the vendor level. We'll talk about subtotals in a minute. Let's just turn that on and see what that looks like and see if that makes sense to everybody. All right, so now we have null value in the Q department, Aurora in the TP department. You see what I mean? Now these, I wish we had more than one department in each one. This just seems to be pretty bad data in that respect. But these are actual departments within those areas, if that makes sense. So this is actually reading the department code that happens to be in that area. So it just so happens that this MP3 department and vendor and this Verting whatever vendor both happen to use the GE department, right? So let's twist it around and let's see what happens if we go the other way. So what happens if I swap these two right here and I swap these two right here and swap them here? Let's take a look at that. All right, so you see the GE department now is the primary sort, first tier sort. Vendor code is second tier sort. And you see the two vendor codes get grouped together under that department code, and then it gets subtotaled, right? So in this particular example, the lowest level of detail is the vendor code within a department. Does everybody get sort now? Now let's go toy with sort some more. Let's cancel this. Yes, we want to cancel. Yes, we do. We just want to escape out of here. No, I don't want to save any changes. All right, so back to this item report, right? If we run this item report, print, it shows me, oddly enough, every item that I've sold, right? And I've got, 1, 10, 7, 10, whatever, right? Various quantities here, right? And they are, in fact, alphabetical by department, right? So sort in this case is determining the level of detail, the item, and the order, right? But sort does not have to determine the order. So what if I do this? What if I say, I'm going to turn on ranking? Now, what's the difference between ranking and sorting? Sorting can be done before the results are published. Ranking has to be done after. It has to run the report, get the results, and then it can rank them, right? So let's try running this one now. So in this case here, sort is determining the level of detail, i.e. the item, but is not determining the order. The order is being determined by the rank, right? So I said first level of ranking was quantity, so 344 goes on top, 100 goes next, and then 20. But now at 20, there's a 5-way tie, right, for items that sold 20 pieces. So the second tier ranking, as you can see in the top left corner here, where it says ranking, says what's that? Man, that's a really tough thing to read, isn't it? That's really quantity. It says sold quantity is what that sold number. Then it's got a bar there, and then it's got extended price as the tiebreaker. So when we get to 20, you see that 439 goes first, then it's 419. Now when you get to 419.80 and they're both exactly the same, then it would come down to alphabetizing is what it would come down to basically at that point. All right. Anybody still awake out there?
Yeah, we're there.
Just checking. I mean, this is like really cool stuff, but it's like really boring. I mean, I'm just going to say this is like, like not off boring, but it's critical. I had a client who did not get this sort layout concept, and she had put an item into her layout that was not in her sort. So we were not drilling down to that level of detail, if you see what I'm saying. And I told her the answer is that she has to put it into her sort. She didn't do it. She called tech, and she had a tech fly down to San Diego to fix it. I mean, he flew down there. He called me on the phone. I told him what was wrong. He fixed it, and then he flew back. Very expensive fix. So understanding sort and layout, critical. If you can't understand sort and layout, you're in a world of hurt when it comes to this whole reporting thing. And that's the first thing. Now the second thing, which I should look back at my little template here and find out what I'm supposed to be talking about. But the second thing would be filters. And so that actually works out really well. We sort of bumped right into it because we went into ranking and then filters. So a lot of people have trouble when you say create a report, people have a trouble distinguishing sort elements from filter elements, right? That's like if I said I'd like to see uh, the best-selling vendors in my pant department. Okay, well, wait a second. What's sort and what's filter there? Okay, so the best-selling vendors is going to be a report on vendors. That's going to be a vendor summary, right? I'm asking you to report on vendors. So that's a vendor summary, ranked probably best-selling, but filtered to men's pants. Does that make sense? So in filters, let's go back into filters. In filters, you have filters. Now, as we look at this list of reports here, starting right here, actually, the couple right there, then right here, you see the filter in the filter column there, the second column, is the same all the way down. So the sales filter here, the invoice filter, invoices, receiving, PO, those are default filters. So real quick, I just want to point that out. Now, in the sidebar menu, we got two modes here. We got filters and reports, reports and filters. I can flip back and forth, and I could go in here and I could edit a filter. If I edit this one here, the sales filter, I will be editing all of those reports that have the sales filter in the second column. So I would be very careful of editing a default filter. Now, you see here in filters, at some point somebody took this sales filter and copied it and made a new version, right? Which is easy to do. You highlight it, you click copy, it says what's the new name? You say, give it a new name, right? Now, I usually leave the word sales or invoice or receiving. I want to know what type of filter it is. I want to know what data set it's looking at, right? And then I type in whatever I need to make this be what it needs to be, right? So I say new filter. Now that I have a new one that's not the default one, right? I could go in to say edit this. I could add fields to it if I want to. I could go to criteria. I could say I want to have a specific, whatever I want to have in here. I want this to only be for certain departments. I want this to be for the departments to start with the letter C today. That's what I want. Oh, way too many of those, aren't there? All right. It's a little trick, I guess. You guys probably already know this, but the space bar is your friend here. I'm pressing the space bar, so I could down arrow here, and I could click these off a lot faster by down arrowing and clicking each one. You see what I'm saying? The mouse is actually quite slow here. Maybe it's a little too fast. It's a good trick to know. So I could set this filter to be permanent, right? Now I'm going to pop back over to reports. I'm going to pick a report that has, we'll just do an item summary, and we'll say print. Now this is using the sales filter, right? But I could make it use my filter, couldn't I? So now that would only have departments that supposedly start with C, but obviously that didn't work out for me real well, did it? Let's click edit on this. Now the filter itself is attached here in the options menu. So in the options menu, I could actually make that a permanent change. If I needed to. Now, again, I wouldn't probably edit the default reports either. So the ones that say sales item summary, I would not edit because they were installed. If they were installed, they could be installed again. If they are installed again and you made changes to them, bye-bye changes, right? So if you want to make a version of report, again, highlight it, click copy, give it a new name, right? And then once you have a new one in there, it should just insert, and it's probably right in this neighborhood right there. Boom, it is. We click edit, we go into options, and we attach our filter permanently, and then we have a new version of that report. So, all right. Any questions on any of that so far? Any report that anybody has been trying to make that they would like me to try to make, that would be a good example of how to build a report, because that's where we're headed next. We have a little question in hand thing here. Hold on. Oh no, that's not. All right, got it. All right, so all right, so we need to make a and like I said, if you guys have questions, just I've unmuted everybody at this point, I believe. So if you're not muted yourself, then you are able to talk or chat. There's a chat. You can feel free to type in things into the chat.
Hi, it's Morgan from Table Talk at Home. How are you today?
I am good. How are you?
Doing well. I have a question that you might have gone over because I got in a little bit late. I do apologize. But I am looking at trying to sort a report. Well, maybe filter, maybe sort. But I would like to look at, I've got vendors that are a consignment basis versus my other. How would I put that onto one report for me, my consignment guys?
Well, all right, with consignment, and this isn't a webinar on consignment, but it's 2 seconds, so I'm not going to worry about that too much. With consignment, what you want to do, consignment, basically you have the same requirement as you would any other item. So when someone consigns a group of merchandise with me, I would need to receive it, not reconcile the receiver. I'm not going to pay the bill, but I need to show it coming into my inventory. I need to sell whatever product I need to report on that and pay the guy. I then need to return the balance back, and I need to show it leaving my inventory. So in every respect, a consignment item would be a normal item, except, and here's where the report comes in, is that I would go into my system preferences, and sorry, I'm running a demo copy on this. This virtual machine here is just a little machine that I use for mostly editing Crystal reports, but it has a demo copy of 8, and I was pressed for time, so I'm just in here. Anyway, I would set up an auxiliary field or a user-defined field. So I would go into your system preferences, merchandise, user-defined, or auxiliary. I would set up a field like that, call it consign, and make it have a value of consign. I got lucky on that one, didn't I?
Right.
That was nice. It was already in there. Then I would go into merchandise inventory, and I would have that field added to the screen. There it is right there. And I would, of course, and everybody should know out there how to use continuous edit mode. F2 is edit mode. Control F2 is continuous. And you can see in the bottom right corner of the screen here, my edit mode is set to continuous. Right. So now I could type like consign, and I can move to the next item and mark it again. But so I would mark these.
And that gives that filter something to look for.
Well, yes, exactly. Or to sort for, right? Either one. So, for instance, if I need to report on my on hand, like if the bank said, hey, what's your on hand? I can't show consigned. So I have to exclude those. Correct. And if
Awesome. Okay.
Yeah, that's the trick right there. Then once you have that in place, the report falls in pretty quickly. So if we were to look at up here, we were to go to look at where are we here? There we go, inventory on hand summary, right? In here, if I were to make a new version of this, I could, if I wanted to, sort to that auxiliary field first, right? I could go to consign, and I could say, look, I want to group all the consignment, first or second or whatever, right? And then I want to subtotal that, and then I want to go to the regular owned stuff and subtotal that, right?
Right. Okay. Awesome. Thank you so much.
Oh, no.
All right.
That's an important one for anybody that, and consignment's huge. I have a client in Vegas who's a very, very successful men's clothing shop that when 2008 hit, they were in trouble, and a lot of their vendors said, you know what, you've been doing so good, we're gonna consign a bunch, and they're still doing it. They still take really high end, stuff I can't afford, but why not? I mean, it's good for both of them. The only downside to consignment is cash flow, because when you sell it, you have to pay for it right then. But otherwise, the selection and the customer's experience are both enhanced by having a nice wide selection, So,
absolutely. Thank you.
Not a problem. All right. Excellent. That's an excellent example, though, of using like an auxiliary field to augment the data a little bit and give us our what we need in reporting. And of course, both situations, I showed it here in the sort, but we should pop over to filters, and in filters we could go to edit, and we could go down and we could find that field. Should be down here in the filtering area. There's my auxiliary fields. And of course, I'm not finding the user-defined ones yet, but I've probably passed them. But you get to get where I'm going here. Is it, we just find that field, we double-click it, we send it above the line. Is it already in there? Oh yeah, I can't find it. Yeah, there you go. So yeah, then at runtime, and then I could go in and say, by using this field here, I want only consigned item, or I want the items that have nothing in the field, right? And of course, in a field like that, you only tag it if it's consigned. You don't tag everything else not consigned. That's a little crazy.
Sure.
But excellent. All right, so we should take on a bigger, more challenging task now. We should go design probably a merchandise report and a journal. Let's do a quick journal here real fast. So let's take a look here, and what do I have? I have a receipt journal, and we already have a receipt journal with item detail, but that's a very important report, and I'd like to design it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this one here. Normally I would copy this. Let's see what's in it here. Edit, sort. Right, store receipt number, document SID. Does everybody know what a SID is? A SID is a system ID. SID guarantees one unique piece of data. That's what a SID does for us. There are item SIDs, there are receipt document SIDs, there are customer SIDs. But if you're in a report and you want that extra level of insurance that you are getting a unique value, then you put SID above the line. You don't put the SID in here. Nobody wants to see a document SID. It's a long, ugly, randomly generated number that no one ever wants to see. So, all right, so normally what I would do is I would copy this, and then I would add, with item detail, and I can't type that, but maybe that's going to benefit me because I already have that report, so we'll just put this little 2 there or something. You only get 40 characters here, so you might have to get creative if you're trying to, make that fit. All right, I'm going to go in here and we're going to click on Edit. Now, sort is the receipt number, and we're getting a little insurance policy, but receipts are broken out by store, so if I have more than one, they're going to be separated by store, which totally makes sense, by the way, if you got multiple stores. All right, so then in the layout, I've got the store receipt number, date, time, cashier, blah, 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 right? Now, I don't see any item detail there. So let's go over here to options. And in options, it says show item detail, no. So we're going to say, well, show item detail, yes. Let's turn that on. And then, of course, over here in the sidebar menu, we see that there's, in fact, a button for detail. So let's click that open. And there's one tab in here. We only turned on one of the details. We could turn on the text, too, if we wanted to. But this is the order of fields for the items, which by default is a little wonky. I'm not sure why they don't put the style number first. And they don't give you a description too, which bothers me. And I really don't know why cost is in a sales report. I mean, this is a journal. This is a report I'd run if I made a mistake and I was trying to find who screwed up. I don't need to see cost here. So how many I sold, what I sold it for, if there was a discount, all relevant, fair enough. But I don't need cost. All right, so let's click save, and let's click print, and let's see what that looks like. Nothing to print. Excellent. So let's go print again, and let's say minus. All right, let's just go like that. All right, now that's the report, but damn, that is hard to read. Like, wow. It's kind of a mess, actually. So let's look at some of the features here in reporting. Non-repeat mode. What does that mean? Well, that means if it's in the same department, so if we're talking about an item summary, right, then and they were in the same department, then it means don't print the same department over and over again, right? So if we've got department, vendor, style, color, size, then it prints the department and the vendor and the style and the color, It doesn't need to print those again. It just prints all the sizes, then it prints the new color, prints the sizes, then it prints the new style and the sizes. You follow? And eventually we get to a new vendor and we start over on the new vendor, and eventually we get to a new department and it prints them all again. Does that make sense? Non-repeat mode. It's sort of like an outline format, right? The more important it is, the farther it goes to the left. Does that make sense to everybody? All right. We don't want that here. I want to turn that off. Now, every transaction is going to hit the left-hand margin, and it's going to help my eyes see what's going on. Now, line feed after data block. What the hell does that mean? What's a data block? Okay, well, a data block is your sort level of detail. So, in an item report, an item sales summary, a data block would be an item. In a sales receipt journal, a data block is a receipt. So, line feed after every transaction. Yes. Yes, beautiful. Yeah, let's do that. Let's see what that makes a difference. So we're going to say minus something. By the way, pressing T, the letter T like Thomas, press enter. T enter is today, in case you didn't know that. Now that is the same report, but it is easier to read. So down at the bottom, you see where it says store, whatever that is, 000, receipt number 000011 on 329.17. And then the item is listed beneath, then a little break, and then receipt number 12, right? Everybody sees that, right? Now, if you're having trouble ever seeing a field or want to highlight something, right-click up here, go to Find, type in what it is you're looking for, and it will highlight it in red for you. Very handy, by the way. And if you have a big report and you're trying to find a specific style in the big report, that is a super sweet function. I'm just going to tell you. This is the previewer, of course. All reports go to the previewer. So that's an example of a receipt journal with item detail. Let's back up and let's go back up to Mr. Receipt Journal. Let's just give that one a quick spin so we can compare and contrast, right? Right, so that's the same report right there. It's a little bit shorter without the items intermixed, right? Just list the transactions out, boom, done. All right, so that's your journal, your basic journal. Let's go to merchandise. Okay, so merchandise is a little bit different animal. We're going to start fresh, and what do we feel like making today? Should we make an on-hand sold penetration report? Should we make a trending report? Anybody care?
Let's do a trending report.
All right, let's do a trending report. So, trending over what, a year? 6 months? Yeah. Okay.
Let's do a year.
Let's do a year. By department, by vendor?
By vendor.
Okay. So, I probably would call this a penetration report. Something like that, you know what I mean? You can call it percent to total if you prefer. Filters, I don't even know if you need a filter. If you do need a filter, I would go with a generic. You see the two generic ones in there, the ones in all caps. And if you don't know the generics, just go back and look at the list of reports. Item is used in 90% of these reports, by the way. Okay, now let's go deal with sort. So this is by a vendor. That's easy. So we go find the vendor code. Okay, there's our sort, right? That's our level of detail. That's all we want to see. Each vendor, the on-hand, the sales, and how they compare to each other, right? All right, excellent. Layout. Let's do the same thing in layout. Yeah. All right, let's go find some sales, right? Well, wait a second. What is that? That's not a sales. It's a DT1. Of course, that's a trick question. DT stands for data type, right? Excellent. Yeah, so we can do that, Cynthia. That's another good suggestion. Sold on hand, on order. We could do that here in a minute. That's perfect too. That's very nice. Let's connect the dots here on these. Um, so DT stands for data type. Data type 1 is a slot. It's a position in the menu. There are, in fact, as you can see, 16 data type slots. So let's go over here to options. And in options, it says data types defined. And there are 0 data types defined. So let's open that up. And let's add 1. And let's say that it's on hand. And surprisingly, we will call that on hand. And then we'll say add a net sales range. We'll call that sales for last 300 days. We don't care. Actually, it'd have to be last 12 months if we're going to do a month thing, right? Well, all we get is moths. Nice. We're running out of characters here. All right. I can kind of live with that. I hate what it does here. So I personally have a problem with that, and it is it just says net sales data type 2. It should just say sold here, right? I mean, we don't really want it to say something goofy like that. That's just weird. So let's go back here. Let's say we want 12 months ago. All right. Let's click OK. So now, before I leave this screen, though, in our data type screen, 1 is on hand, 2 is sales, right? Okay. Now, okay, so what is that? Is that sales or on hand? Data type 1 was on hand, right? So, do I care about quantity? Maybe. I probably care more about cost. So, I'll throw quantity up there, I'll throw cost up there. This is on hand, so I don't care about retail on hand. And then down here, we have these cool percentage totals. It makes the whole thing possible, right? So we'll throw that one up and that one up. And then data type 2 is sold. So I'll grab those. And while I'm here, data type 2, since it's sold, the price becomes relevant, right? And I'm going to grab the penetration here too. And actually, I screwed that date range up, didn't I? Yeah, I just realized that. It still works. We'll roll with it here. We don't want to waste too much time on everybody's side. All right, so we'll grab that, and no, actually, we want that and that and that, and we don't want now. If I was doing this better, like a trending report, actually, I would have done 12 ranges, but let's just do it with 1 for now and see how it looks, and then actually, I'm doing a penetration report, right? We should have done a trending report. All right, we'll finish this one and then we'll move on. I'm obviously having a mentally challenged organizational moment. This is still a cool report, though, I will tell you. But we will do a trending report. Super easy, by the way. I don't know how I got stuck on that penetration thing, didn't I? Kind of went off the tracks.
You're forgiven.
Yeah, I'm just old, I guess. I don't know. It happens. Just when you think you're safe. Well, see, now our data here sucks because we don't have any sales in the last year. But that being said, you see that it shows you the vendor code, shows you the actual on-hand cost dollars, the actual sold cost dollars. Then it shows you the penetration of on-hand dollars and the sold penetration of cost dollars. So if your on-hand penetration is whatever, 10%, What do we have here? All right, so this third one down, whatever this DIR zoo here, it says it's 2.28 in penetration of cost dollars. I've spent 2.28 of my available dollars to spend on that vendor. Is it in fact, 2.28% of my sales? Is it holding up its own, right? Now, you guys all know, you guys are all buyers. You guys know the seasonality of merchandise. So you'd be able to tell if we were preseason, postseason, or in season, and whether that number was valid and accurate and on target, if you see what I'm saying. Anyway, let's go do a trending report, because I don't hear anybody getting too excited about that. So probably works better if I spell it correctly, huh? So has everybody figured out how I'm going to do this yet?
No.
All right, so let's go take a quick peek at some sales here. Let's if we're going to put the ranges in, we should go see what ranges we have probably real quick. This data could be really old. We don't seem to have much in the way of data here, do we? That's the current one. Cancel month. We got something in March, so we need to include March. April. We got something in April. Nice. Okay, that's enough of that. All right, so let's just take like March, April, May forward here. So we're going to say net sales. Now, normally when I do this, I don't want to. I could call this March, right? And I could set this to, and I could say right here, March, right? And I could come down here and I could set this to fixed period. I could set this to March, right? Boom. Everybody knows you can click on the month name, right? Go right to March. You don't have to go like left, right? Now I could do that, but now that freezes this report forever, right? So let's freeze that one. Let's call that one good. And let's go ahead and make another one here. And we'll do a little compare and contrast. So what are we in right now? We're in October, and we want to go to April. So we're in 10, and we want to go back to 4, right? So I'll call this one April. Actually, I'm going to call this 7 months ago. I could be wrong on that. Probably want to end in there too. All right, so I could also do this here, right? 1 month duration. Start at 7. Let's see what 7 does for us. Wrong one. So it's 6 months ago. Fair enough. Right. So that gave us the right date range, didn't it? But it moves through time. Do you understand that that's a dynamic date range, right? So next month, this will automatically hop over to May. It'll always be 1 month, 6 months ago. You follow? Does that make sense, everybody?
Yep.
I mean, that way you don't have to come in here and constantly maintenance this thing, right? So then I could say 5 months ago. Now you have to figure out which month it is, but it's got the date range on the top, so it's not that hard. And I usually do like month minus 5, because that's a column header, right? So then question mark months, 1 month, 5 months ago, boom. And for those of you who hate mice, let's park the mouse up here. Let's press enter on add. Let's down arrow to net sales. Let's type in 4 months ago. Tab, month minus 4, tab, F4, down arrow, down arrow, down arrow, tab 1, tab 4, tab, enter, tab, enter. You can actually enter these a lot faster by doing this, right? Now, at this point, I'm just going to say that we're probably good for the moment. So we've got 4 in there. We could keep going. I could build all the whole year, but I'm just going to run with that. I think you see that we could keep going down that path. So we've got 4 data types defined. Let's go over to layout here and sort. Let's get our sort handled. So we're going to go vendor code on top. Boom. We're going to go layout, vendor code on top. And then we're going to pop down here and decide what we want. So the very basics would be to go like that, right? To just see a sales trend. So we'll start with that. 2, 3, and 4. So only the first 2 months have sales, but you see what I mean. You can see now 7 months ago, 6 months ago, 5 months ago, 4, 3, 2, 1. You can go all the way across the thing and see, what you want to see. Now, the problem with this report, if there is a problem, is that I'm greedy and I'm going to want to see more than just the sales. Like, it'd be nice if I could see like the margin too. And maybe I want to see the quantity, right? But the paper's only so big, right? I mean, I could turn the paper sideways. I could say, hey, give me landscape. I could even say, maybe change it to like legal size paper, but you're going to run out of room is what's going to happen. Now, of course, if you don't plan to print it, you just plan to export it to Excel, you don't care. And of course, totaling, let's talk about totaling real quick. Totaling, first off, grand totaling at the bottom, you just basically put everything above the line. That's it, right? That's all there is to grand totaling. Now, subtotaling, is this report a good candidate for a subtotal? Now, the answer is no. But why is the answer no? The answer is no because there's only one element. So in order to subtotal, you have to sort to more than one layer. So earlier I did department by vendor, and I subtotaled by department, and we saw a department with more than one vendor, and then we saw the subtotal for said department, right? But if you subtotal for your lowest element, then it's redundant. It's going to show that item in the subtotal, and then the next item in the subtotal, and the next item in the subtotal. It's just doubling the report. Everybody gets that, right? All right. What's the difference between a subtotal and a run total? Okay, a subtotal is a set of data. A running total is a cumulative total that adds all previous data into the total as it goes down the paper, correct? So when would I use a running total? Well, only with time. If I ran a report and I was sorting by months of the year and I wanted to see where I was for that month and month year to date, right? Then suddenly running totals are cool. But every other situation, I'm not going to want to see. If I'm running a department summary, I don't want to see a running total. If that makes sense. All right, so now let me circle back to the comment that we had here in the chat. So it's a sold, on hand, on order. Cynthia, do you see how you could make one of those? So all we would have to do is add like all 3 of those elements, right, to this thing here. Right, we'd make an on hand one. We'd add a sold one, usually net sales, by the way, sold, and for whatever time period we wanted, right? And then we would add on order, right? And then I usually go with like 00 on that one. And then you got to set your date range. What's relevant on order? Like, can I see preseason orders for next year, or can I only see current orders right now? So maybe my current on order time period is 2 weeks back and a month forward, or in other words, 45 days start 15 ago. Or maybe it's broader. Maybe it's 30 days back and 2 months out. So it's 90 days start 30 days ago, right? So you got to define what range of on order you want to see. And it's not just backwards like sales are. It's also forwards. Then, of course, that gives you your data types. So data type 1, 2, and 3 is in play here. If you get more than like 4 or 5, write them down. It's so painful to remember which one's which when you get out into the layout. But with 3, I think I can remember pretty well. So you go to your sort, right? So when you say on hand, sold, and on order, for what? For departments, for vendors, for items. So are we drilling all the way down to the item? So that sort is the drill down, right? The layout is what we get to see, right? So I could add description 2 in here because I want to see it, but that doesn't change the drill down, right? And I could have my item number in here, and usually if I do, I put that up on the top because I want to see that in the left-hand margin. And then I could go down and find what I want to see. I want to see data type 1, which is on hand, data type 2, which is sold, and data type 3, which is on order. And then I might want to break this by department and show the subtotals by department, or by vendor, or by both, and grand total at the bottom. Now I could have put in sold and extended price and all that stuff, but I didn't. I just kept it simple here. And of course, anytime you add on hand to the data types, it has to read the entire inventory. Oh, gotcha. No mic. Good call, Cynthia. Thank you for that. And thanks for the cool chat, too. I appreciate it. I really do. And that's fine. No mic is okay. All right, so is this working? Yeah. So we got items. We got the on-hand. And the on-hand is really big because I'm in a demo, and it resets the quantity on-hand to 10 for every inventory. So clearly I have 22 inventories. So 220 items, right? So a sold quantity and on order quantities, of course, they're all 0 because this is just a sandbox and nobody's using this data, so it's a mess basically. But yeah, that's exactly it. There's sold, on hand, and on order all in one report. And now we could have made this at the vendor level, right? We could make this at any level we choose to drill down to and report on. Absolutely. So excellent suggestion, by the way. Oh yeah, new name already, Prince. So that's also a good thing. The name of the report is also in the options menu here. So you should say this is an item on hand, sold, on order, report or whatever. You should give it a decent name that makes sense to what you're doing. You gotta be careful in here too. There's a lot in these little things that can get you in trouble. When zeros show, like if you don't want the zeros to show, you can have items that are all zeros. When 0, don't show the items. Leave this unchecked, and it won't show items that are 0. Now that's both good and bad, though, right? I mean, it shortens the report, but on the other hand, if it's 0 and you should be ordering it, but you're going to eliminate it so it doesn't show up, then you won't know to order it. So, double-edged sword on that one. Record limit, that's tied to ranking. If we rank and we only want to see the top 10, then we put that in there, right? Every report has different switches. So I'm going to tell you to look in each report, and there's some that'll get you in trouble. In fact, I should probably pop out to, I'm thinking of one in particular. Let's go back to the report we did earlier real quick and just peek at the options menu. Yeah, this one here will bite you firmly in the rump. That one will hurt you really bad. Use net sales. If that ever says no, and let's say you sold 12 items, but somebody returned 2 items, maybe from a different day, whatever. So we had 12 items being sold. You had 2 items being returned. If that says yes, it's going to say you sold 10 items, right? If that says no, it's going to say 14. If it says no, then it just adds the integers together. It doesn't care if they're positive or negative. It just gives you the gross number. Now, there are times when I want that rare, but there are times when I want to know that gross number. If I'm looking to see how many items were processed in an hour, how busy was it, right? Then I want to know the gross number. Other than that, I want to see the net number all the time. So, okay, excellent. All right. Creating reports. I should pop through those real quick and make sure we understand. If you're in journals, you click new, you're going to get a list of types of journals you can make. These are the data types, right? I can make a sales journal, a receiving journal, a transfer journal. Movement notes is unrelated. That's people that use MCS, movement control system. Most people don't. Sales order, purchase order, or transfer order, right? Those are all types of data, right? So if we go to merchandise report and we click new, we don't see a menu like that because we define our data types ourselves, right? We're in the driver's chair on that one. If we go to summaries, however, we do see the same kind of thing. Now, this is a bigger list. And what they did here is they did sales merchandise and sales transaction. What would be a sales transaction summary? I mean, mostly it's going to be items, right? I mean, departments are part of the item. Vendors are part of the item. Obviously, attributes and sizes, pieces sold. That's all at the item level. What would I ever need in a transaction summary? But there are things that can only be summarized to the transaction level. Let's ask a trick question because I love trick questions. They make my tail wag. All right, so can you run a report, or should you be able to run a report that to show how many items were bought by cash versus credit card? I mean, it would seem a reasonable request, right? The question is, what happens when a customer split tenders, half cash and half credit? How does the computer decide what items were purchased by cash and what items were purchased by credit card? And the answer is it doesn't. Computers don't make decisions. They just do what they're told. So you see that you could split a transaction with 10 different types of tender if you wanted to, right? So the only way you could run that report is if you said no one can ever split tender. You either buy it all cash or all credit card. Then you could run that report. So tender types, they're only summarizable to the transaction level. And of course, there is such a beast, right? If you go down here in the list, sales tender reconciliation by day, right? Of course, there's nothing in that month. Let's try running it for a month time period when there is something. 040117. Right. So there you see a given day, right? And a receipt total, cash, check, Amex, Master, Visa, right? That's a transaction summary. There are several other kinds of transaction summaries. That's by far the lion's share, though. That's 90% of the transaction summaries being run out there. There's a few other ones. But anyway, summaries, you see that they split it up like that. And that's just, I guess, the way they decided to do sales. They came back and did receiving much later, and they didn't do it for receiving or transfers. They do it for the sales area, though. And of course, you get the same kind of thing in lists, not that we care a whole lot. All right, so building a report, you could click new and you could click on a type and you could build it from scratch, but let's face it, it's a whole lot easier to just find something that's close to your end goal and copy it, right? We should make a quick note of something here. on the far right hand side of this column, we see a file name UL000961, right? And I would take a moment to note, okay, nice, that's not what we want to go to, thanks, but no thanks. We're not doing any SQL editing at the moment. Okay, so if the number in the report, you see all these numbers in here, if the number is between 1 and 50, it's a retail RPI installed report. It is editable. I don't recommend editing it, because if you edit it and you do an update, a maintenance pack, you're going to lose your edits. Okay, if the number is 51 to 100, it is RPI installed canned. And the canned is very important. It's pre-programmed to do something very special. It cannot be copied. If the number is between 101 and 999, it is a user-defined report. If you delete one of the top ones, it'll come back. If you delete one of the bottom ones, it's gone. If you delete a user-defined report, there's no safety net for that. So this first report in the list is clearly a user-defined report because the report file number is 961. Now they started 999 and worked backwards. So they made like 38 reports before they made to get that one. Whatever report this is from. I don't know what data this is from. Now this can thing, let's just pause on that real fast. So if I look over here, check in and out. So that's a report that looks at the time of a receipt and the time of another receipt and calculates how many hours between, right? That's what that does, by the way. If I try to copy this, it tells me right up front, man, this is a canned report. You cannot copy this. So with the canned reports, what they did, like the check in and out report, you can see it right there. They gave you 10 of them, right? So you can't copy it, but you got 10 to start with. Hopefully that's enough. Most of the time it is. Sometimes it's not. All right, so scheduling. How do we schedule a report? Well, you can't. You can schedule a group though. So right over here below your types is report groups. So if we click report group and we go in here and we say new, we can give this a name, whatever we want to call this, Jeff's report. We can then go to any of these tabs we want, find a report we're looking for, double click it, it's now part of the group. We can click save and back up. Okay, so Jeff's report here, right, has a number, a file number on the far right hand side. It's got 16.rgp, right? Okay. With that information, you could schedule this. So there are a series of command line parameters for that kind of thing. So let's just pop down here a little bit. So we're going to run reports.exe, and then we follow it with a command line parameter, print group to screen or print group to printer. I'm going to go with screen. And then you say what the report group number is. So you see that's a 16, so it's 123456116.rgp, right? That's the command right there. So let's try that. Let's take that there and let's go copy. Actually, All right, so there's reports.exe. And we're going to add those two little command line parameters to it. All right, and we're going to click next and test. Okay, now we're going to make sure reports is closed. It appears to be closed, so we're going to double click this. And it says it ran one report, and that's all neat and fine. And we just hang out here for a minute because typically when you're scheduling reports to run at 2 o'clock in the morning, you're not there. It's got to be able to close all by itself, right? So what the heck? Where did that report go, right? I don't see a report. All right, that report went to the review. There's my test report right there. And there's the report that's not it. Oh, that's it right there. There's no data on it. Nice. But if you just say print group to screen, it prints it to the screen and saves it in the screen files. That's what it does. Now, what did I run? I should just, oh, it probably had a data range. Let's go back and check that. So groups. Yeah, sales vendor summary. If that was set wide open, it should have been pretty friendly. Let's go back and see what that is. And that kind of brings a good point. Kind of glad I stumbled on my face there. In order to schedule a report, you have to edit the filter. You have to have your own custom filter. You have to set the date range. It must be able to be run unattended. Oh, that's set to today. So let's set this to a wider range here. Let's say, yeah, whatever, 24, start 24. That's definitely going to get enough data. All right, so now let's look at other options, though. All right, so I'm going to add something to this here. I'm going to say, and colon, I'm going to put a little colon in there, send this to PDF. So I change it to be PGS colon PDF. Click OK. Let's make sure report says, in fact, close. You can't open two copies. It doesn't work real well. Okay, so it ran the report. Boom, right? And we're waiting for it to close. And it closed. All right, so now let's go back into reports. Okay, there's our report right there, right? Let's go to details. That was run today. Boom, 10, 11, 17. So we select that, and there's our report, right? So it did get saved in the screen file, but where's the PDF? Well, the PDF natively goes to the print folder. So if we go look for a folder called print under RPro, we see all those files and a vendor summary PDF. Okay, so let's go ahead and try this. Let's go ahead and say properties. Instead of PGS colon PDF, let's say PGS colon Excel. Let's try that. Come on, you can do it. Here we go. And sure enough, there is a vendor XLS in here now, right? And there it is. Yeah, right. All right, so that's kind of showing you how those things work, but how do you actually schedule it, right? Well, the answer to that is in two ways. One, you could go to Tools and you could activate the Retail Pro Scheduler, which pops in down here. You could then double click that and go into the scheduler and add a task. And we could say we're going to run a program. We could say run reports, give it a name up here, right? And then we come in here and say what the program name is. So the program name, of course, is reports.exe. So there's reports.exe. It starts in RPro. And the parameters, so the parameters are whatever we choose to make them, right? So if we say Excel, and we copy that and drop those in there. And then that's how we would schedule it in Retail Pro. That's how you set it up anyway. Then you go over here to scheduling and you say how often you want this to go. I want this to go daily. I want it to go weekly. I want it to go monthly. I want it to go on the first day of each month at whatever time I want it to go on, right? Click OK, and I've got a scheduled task in there. With the scheduler here, you always want to go in and say run on startup, and then you want to check, and that checks off, and then make current schedule default. That will not check off. It'll basically write a little entry to your system registry. And you also want to save this. So file save. It saves into the Schedule folder under RPro. That's where they should be. And give it a good name. Like the workstation number is a fine name, by the way. Then you know what workstation it belongs to. It's a good thing. That's one option, right? What's another option for scheduling it? Well, you could go down here to the Windows Start button. You could click in there and say Task. It finds Task Scheduler, and you could build a Task Scheduler in here, right? So nice. What does it have to come up underneath everything? So normally what I would do here is I would click on this Task Scheduler library, and then I would say Actions, New Folder, and make myself a Retail Pro folder, which I already have. Then I would right-click here and say New Task, and then I would give it Run Reports, right? And then down here for these kinds of things, you want to make sure you set them correctly. You want to run whether the user's logged in or not. Now that's an advantage of the Windows Task Scheduler versus the Retail Pro one, right? Retail Pro one, you have to be logged in for it to run. So you got to leave your desk logged in all the time, where Windows doesn't. Then triggers is when you want to run it. That's the schedule piece. So you'd say new, and you'd say, well, anytime now. Right, then you say like daily or weekly, monthly. Maybe I want to run this monthly on what day, the first day of each month. At whatever time I want to run it. And stop task if it takes longer than 3 days. Let's go with 30 minutes. Oh, right. Select all. Yeah, when you're doing monthly, you got to select which months too, and I had forgotten to do that, so the OK button wasn't lighting up. And then, of course, then in Actions, here you'd have to put in your command line. So here you have to say run a program, and we're going to run. Oh yeah, we're going to run C:, Retail Pro 8, RPro, reports, right? Boom. And then down here we put in our command line stuff. So we would take this again, copy it, and we'll just type that in here under add arguments, right? And there you go. There's a scheduled task in Windows, and you click OK, and it asks you to confirm with your Windows login, and it's saved. It's in there. And we're going to disable that. I don't really want that light floating around in my system here that trying to run all the time. That'd be kind of weird. So you can do it either way. Windows Task Scheduler works quite well. The Retail Pro Scheduler is built into Retail Pro, and it works quite well too. It's a very nice little scheduler, by the way. I will say. All right. So anyway, and how we doing? Any questions? Any problems? All right, excellent. Well, troubleshooting, we've kind of done a little bit of that as we've gone. You know, with nothing to print typically is either a filter criteria or a date range, which is also kind of filter criteria, right? You can filter yourself out of getting data. So if you get nothing to print, then make sure your date range is wide, and then start backing off different pieces of filter criteria till you get data, and then you figure out usually what you're doing. The run total, subtotal thing, we should probably peek at that real quick. It's 2 seconds. With a given report, I guess it doesn't really matter which one. Go pick on item summary again, right? Edit, totals. So if we're subtotaling here, i.e. when is department code, but there is no what, we're going to get an error. Subtotal, run total, what not defined, right? And vice versa. So if I have a what and I don't have a when, we're going to get an error. So if you have a what, you got to have a when, either here or here. But again, running totals are kind of dumb unless you're doing time. So mostly if you have a when, you need a run total, you need a subtotal. And of course, this one would make sense to subtotal here and maybe even here, because you've got 3 more layers down, right? So subtotaling by department and by vendor might make sense here. Would not make sense to subtotal by size, because that's the lowest level. All right, odd data. Odd data is mostly having to do with that thing that I beat you guys up on earlier with the sort and the layout. If you introduce things to your layout that are not in your sort, that are descriptive, right, you're going to get weird data. You're going to get things that say things that aren't true. That's what's going to happen. If you put it in your sort, it needs to be in your layout. If you put it in your layout and it's not in your sort, then that's wrong. Either way, if it's descriptive, it needs to be in both. It doesn't have to be in the same order. That's the reason they're separate. So there is, I will mention in passing also on the main menu, a little thing called options that gives you a number of little switches that are kind of important. So use order date on POs, use ship date on SOs. These are exactly opposite, and they start like that, and I always change mine like that. The only real date on an order, PO or SO, is the ship date. The day it was created is irrelevant. The day it cancels is irrelevant. If you don't use ship dates, then the next most important date would be order date, I guess. Ignore non-inventory items, right, for merchandise reports, summary reports. Record limit as a percentage. So if you have a bestseller report and you'd rather do top 25% as opposed to top 25 items, right, that's what this does. Now it's global. It's a global setting. It changes them all across the board. And I don't think I care about the Korean tax values. There is also down here a field length thing. Boom, we should look at that. So on the sidebar menu here, on the far right-hand side, it says field links. You can set the field links for the primary data fields only, not for, like, PO number is not going to be in here, okay? But description fields and all that you can set field lengths for. Be particularly careful of these down here, like order, quantity fields, and price fields. Quantity and price fields have decimal value. What does that mean, Jeff? Well, 9 is not 9, is it? Because a decimal in 2 places takes 3 characters. So that means the biggest number you could have is 999,999.99, right? Now, most of us don't use decimals in quantity. That doesn't matter. It's still there. Just because we're not displaying it doesn't mean the data field doesn't contain it. But still, 999,999 is a damn big number. I probably could shave one off that easy. Most item reports wouldn't get into the 100,000 range, especially if it's at an item or department or a vendor level. It might. Maybe you need 9. But you see what I mean. So down here, price cost 11. We'll take 3 from that. You're still looking at 8 digits. That's a big number, and that's a unit price. So, maybe, but probably not for most of us. Extended price, yeah, you could hit 9 digits or 8 digits there. It's a big number again, but still, it could happen. All right. I think I've lost about half of them, and that's fine. I get it. If you're experienced and you already know this and you didn't need to sit through the whole thing, so people are busy out there, right? I get it. Any other questions about reports? Things I did not cover, things I went over too quickly, things you'd like to revisit, a report that you'd like to see made? We had a little time left, about half an hour. Not that I wouldn't mind going home early, but my job is to make sure you guys get what you need to out of this webinar first and foremost.
I like that item on hand versus ordered report. That's awesome.
Yeah, that I've gotten a lot of mileage out of. That's a sweet little thing. It's also, since you mentioned that, I'm gonna pop in and say that once you have one of those built, right? That's the fun thing here, is that you could now take this and copy it and change it to department.
Right. Yeah, that's what I was just thinking.
Right. Yes, it's so easy because all you're doing, all the heavy lifting is done, right? So you just now go in and you change your sort. Now, this is kind of cool too. We could sort to this, but I'm not going to. I'm going to sort to them separately. Any idea why?
Well, then you grab all your subs inside of each of that department.
DC and S, as far as sorting, this here is the same as these 3 together, right? The difference is this. When I go to subtotal, if I've separated them, I can subtotal by only one of them. If I put it in as a single element, then I can't subtotal it. So now if we do this here and we hit save, we hit print, and we say OK, now it'll do like all of one master department and all of its subclasses, the classes and subclasses, and then it'll subtotal that and give you the penetration of that department to the company, which is cool. You get both in one.
Right.
Sometime in our lifetime, hopefully. Right. So now here again, I probably would turn off non-repeat mode because you see all those are C's, and this is a perfect example of non-repeat mode here, and it's kind of bothering me the way it presents. So let's flip that off, and while we're at it, let's turn this over to so let's say non-repeat mode no, and let's say that we would like to go landscape and rerun this one. Yeah, this one is you got to be a buyer. You got to have your finger on the pulse of the business to know if this data is relevant. You really do. And most buyers it'll affirm what they already know about trends. But sometimes it's not the premier department or vendor or the worst. It's the ones in the middle that are most interesting to look at and see where they rank. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So here you see the C now repeating all the way down. So at the bottom of the C's, we're going to see the grand total for that. Right, boom, right there. Now, since we bumped into this, we got a minute, I should probably point out one other thing. I don't like that the way it presents. It's really close to being what I want, but it's not quite what I want. And there is a switch that governs that subtotal, but it's not in reports. It's like so weird. I don't know why they thought it was okay to not put it in reports. So if we exit reports altogether, leave reports, and we go back into regular Retail Pro and we go into options, workstation preferences, in here we have a place for reports, and yes, there is a cool switch right here that says insert a blank line after each subtotal. So let's hit save on that. And now we get to relaunch reports because now it gets to read that preference, right? Let's go back into merchandise. Let's go down to the penetration report. There's our DCS one. Let's go to edit. And while we're at it, let's take a quick jaunt into the ever popular appearance mode. There's two modes over here. Appearance mode doesn't get much action. I'm going to tell you, it's all design, really, 99.9%. But occasionally the appearance mode is worth it. If you go in here, all you're dealing with is these. You're not touching anything in the body. I really want to click on. I want to double click on one of these. Don't do it. Column headings. Let's say the column headings want to go bold, and let's say that the details. Actually, we can leave those alone. We could go down if you need to save space left to right. Change that to a 7. You got to type it in. But if you change that to a 7, you'll pick up 3 columns. It's amazing how much you get just for one pitch size. And let's do this here. Let's go navy. Ooh. Let's hit save. Let's go back to design mode. Let's click print. Let's click OK. Now this should be a lot easier to read. Although the last one wasn't bad, this one should be significantly better on the eyes because we've highlighted the column headings, we've accentuated the subtotals, and we've put a space around it. So it should just make the whole thing a lot more pleasant. I don't know what the resolution is doing here on this machine. It's going weird on me, but you see the navy navy subtotals now, right? And that little space, man, that's huge. The space is just enormous. When you get into a situation with multiple subtotals on the page, that break, man. So.
That's great.
Yeah, that is a cool report. Like I said, I really enjoyed playing around with that and looking at different. And you could, if you wanted to, you could even add like last year's sales, right? You could see the penetration for last year, the penetration for this year, and the current on hand.
Right. And that'll show you your trend inside of those median departments towards the larger.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, this is always to the whole. So here, if you looked at a penetration number like 1.25 on this first G department, that's to the company, right? And then at the bottom of that, you see that the on hand for the entire G department is 10% of the company, right? But if you were to filter this report to a store or to a vendor, right, then the whole pie would be the store or the vendor, right? So you can filter it down to a department if you want. Like if we filtered this to the G department, this report here. No, I don't want to save it. Print, filter. Okay, so there's the G departments, right? And we're going to use the old down arrow spacebar trick because it's a lot faster. And there's way too many G departments. Even for someone who's fairly quick, that's a lot of departments. Let's click OK, and let's see. Now the whole pie now becomes G, right? That's it. So now when you see the classes and subclasses, their penetration is much higher now, right? Because, and now it's 28% here in this one because it's just the G department we're analyzing. Same thing you could do with the vendor one too. You could filter the vendor one to a department or to a store, right?
Right.
Yeah, it's a nice report. It's a slick report. Quantity is just along for the ride. I mean, it's kind of relevant to see the quantities you sold, the quantities you have on hand, but but only a few buyers even care about that. And I would chuck that in a quick second if you were going to look at last year's numbers. And I forgot to put in the on-hand quantity. Oh, there's the on-hand quantity right there. It's just showing really big numbers. So
You're looking forward to a good year.
there you go. Yeah, I know. It's just that, that what Retail Pro does is to prevent you from using the software in demo mode for a real environment. Is it resets the on-hand quantity every day. That's I don't know. I have dealer licenses. I just didn't apply one. So everything for every location is 10.
Sure.
So, all right. Any other questions?
Thank you for that.
Oh, not a problem. Thank you for jumping in. I really appreciate it. I always appreciate when people jump in, and it makes it better, I think, for everybody. If somebody doesn't understand something, there's half the room that also doesn't understand it. So just most people won't raise their hand. So, all right, I am going to tell you guys to have a great one. If you're in California, don't go outside. Try not to breathe, and I guess we'll do this again next time and have fun till then.
Thanks, you too. Have a good night.
Okay,
Be
thanks.
safe.
Yeah, you too. Bye-bye.